in just a couple of minutes.
It's on. Thank you. That. There it is. I'm just gonna plug it in today.
Welcome to everyone here, and thank you for coming on this beautiful evening. My name is Laura Wilkinson-Sinton, and along with Jean Seeger, Sue Marinin, Stephanie Kopp, who will wave their arms, and Morelli Ramirez, we started StopTheSewage.org, which was a local community activist group to draw attention to our sewage crisis on our beaches. Every year, as you may know, billions of gallons of raw sewage, industrial waste, and trash flow into the Tijuana River Valley, closing our beaches, sickening people and wildlife. And when it rains, the high volume of water and pollution overwhelms our regional infrastructure and creates dangerous conditions. We have wastewater treatment plants on both sides of the border, but yet with decades of neglect, both of them failed at the same time, and it has caused havoc for 20 miles of our shared beaches. A 2017 study by Scripps Institute of Oceanography linked over 34,000 illnesses in Imperial Beach to water pollution. And another recent study reported that sewage routinely enters the air from turbid water near the main Tijuana River channel in inland communities, releasing unsafe levels of hydrogen sulfide and other gases in close proximity to residential neighborhoods and even elementary schools in San Ysidro. Many of you remember last August when we all woke up and thought, hey, I gotta call a plumber. But that wasn't us. That was hydrogen sulfide and a southerly wind that blew it north, and we all felt it in Coronado very, very deeply. And we see it now on our beaches with those yellow signs. You'll hear a lot of great stuff tonight. There is great reason for hope. In the news in the last couple of days, there have been some big changes. Dr. Maria Elena Giner, who is a former commissioner and did a phenomenal job for the IBWC, resigned, and the new administration has appointed Chad McIntosh as the new commissioner. We have our cabinet level EPA administrator, Lee Zelvin, that was here on Tuesday, I guess. It was, time flies so fast. He was here on Tuesday, got a lot of news coverage, and pledged to our Navy SEALs and to our communities to get action on this. So, working with the Stop the Sewage Club at the Coronado High School, these students have been phenomenal, and they'll let you hear about their work as well as the program that they put together tonight. Just a few housekeeping items. If you could please silence your cell phones and save any questions to the end of the presentations, because some of them may be answered in that. We'll reserve time at the end for these speakers as well. There are frequently asked questions. It's about 4 pages. It's everything from the background to who you can call to get action, how to tell if our beaches are safe, where we're going with this. These are available on the tables, and there's also a QR code on the tables as well, so you can get a copy of this if you did not get one. I'd like to recognize our elected officials who are here today. We do have Mal Sandy from the Coronado Unified School Board. If you could stand up now. Renee Kavanaugh, also from the CUSD Board of Trustees. And I am proud to introduce someone who is a wonderful community leader and a dear friend of mine, Alexia Palacio Peters, who is the president of the Coronado Unified School District Board of Trustees, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce our Stop the Sewage Club leaders.
Thank you, Laura. If everyone could please stand for the pledge. Hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United be here today as one of the trustees for our Coronado Unified School District. We talk about supporting our students and what we do for our students, and we're here because our students are doing something for us. And we have two remarkable young men who began an organization, a club. They met with community members and they've rallied their peers to start this amazing organization called Stop the Sewage. And I'm so honored to be able to introduce both these gentlemen, Sean Wilbur and Danny Weingart, and we thank you for everything you've done for us.
All right, thank you all for coming to this event, and thank you Board Member Palacios Peters for introducing me. So what is the Coronado High School Stop the Sewage Club? Well, we are an environmental and civically engaged club on the CHS campus, and we have roughly 60 student members who all work towards a cleaner environment. We have monthly club meetings where we often have educational slides for club members. We often work on projects like letter writing campaigns, we're making posters, and we've had guest speakers on the past too.
Yeah, to build on to that, so what is really fueling all of this action that we're taking? And that would be our mission here. As you can see, STS, Stop the Sewage, empowers and educates our community, advocating for sustainable solutions to the Tijuana River Valley sewage crisis. And this is really what empowers every one of the students that you see here today, taking time out of their afternoon to come help and run this event, and also all of the rest of the 60 members in our club. So here we're going to talk about our personal stories. Danny, you want to start on this one?
Sure. One of my largest passions is surfing. I like being out on the water, hanging out with friends, and watching the sun melt over the horizon. But years ago, all of this changed. When the sewage first started, I could no longer surf, and it got worse and worse to the point where it was threatening the health of our communities. So one day, while walking along the beach, I decided I needed to take the initiative to create a Stop the Sewage Club at our high school. And since then, we've grown into the club that we are today, and I could not be more proud. What's your personal story, Sean?
Yeah, so well, I might not be shredding on the waves like Danny is. I definitely enjoy spending time with my family and friends, either in the water or just on the sand having fun. And I realized when I couldn't go in the water for various programs like Junior Guards or the 4th of July Open Water Swim, along with just not being able to pop in the water and enjoy the waves with my family that was visiting from out of town. That's when I realized that we needed to make a change. And so Danny texted me, he was like, yo, Sean, I'm thinking about solving this whole sewage thing. And I was like, that sounds great, let's do it. And here we are today. So that's really the stories that have driven our mission. And if you ask any one of the 60 members of the Stop the Sewage Club, they're gonna tell you the same stories. They love surfing, they love the environment, they love the community, and that's why they're here. Along with every one of you also has a story on why you're spending time out of your afternoon to come watch us talk for 2 hours. Because you love the beach too, and that's why we're doing this.
So what are some of our past events? Well, in the past, we've done protests, which have drawn lots of media attention, one of which was completely student-led. We've also done letter writing campaigns for the former Biden administration and the current Trump administration. We've had a large presence on social media, and we've been featured in news stories, podcasts, and articles. And we've also had presence at lobbying trips to Sacramento, which our one from this year is coming up pretty soon, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, so just to add on to more of what Danny's saying, together CHS Stop the Sewage students have put in over 1,000 hours of advocacy and research on this effort. And so in this time, we've raised over $25,000 in earned media. Now, earned media means that the media came to us knowing that our program, our outreach would add value to their programs. So we were not paying for these advertisements, we were not paying for these programs. Media outlets are coming to us, and you'll see a couple more examples about that. In addition to this, we successfully led a 400 signature petition to get the Coronado City Council to declare a state of emergency on the sewage crisis. We spoke before them multiple times, and this petition, signed by many of the CHS students along with community members, was very helpful in this change. Along with this, we've done radio, live TV news, magazine, podcasts, and newspaper interviews. And we've been influencing recent allocations of over $150 million federal dollars coming from Washington, D.C. to solve this crisis. But wait, there's more.
Not done yet.
So, in order to to achieve this, we spoke in front of the CUSD School Board 3 times. We spoke in front of the Coronado City Council twice. We had the honor of being able to testify before the California Coastal Commission. We've been present at 5 different protests and demonstrations which take all different forms, whether community events like this one, full-on protests, or maybe it's more of a solemn thing like Danny will show in the pictures later. And through this, we've been able to pass 4 state bills to protect California's oceans and waterways. And that was done through our Sacramento trip last year, which we're going on in about 2 weeks. We're very excited for that.
So now you've heard a bit about what the Stop the Sewage Club is. So I wanted to share some pictures of our past advocacy efforts. The 3 pictures on the top of the screen are from our student-led protests. On the left-hand side, we have one of our club members holding a nice Stop the Sewage sign. In the middle, I'm leading the crowd through a chant. And on the right-hand side on the top, we have the crowd forming into a big SOS sign, which is showing that we're in dire need of support. On the bottom, we have some pictures from when the Coastal Commission was here locally in San Diego. We have, I was testifying at it, and then we planned an event. We kind of did a candlelight visual ceremony, and Mar Vista High School came, and it was kind of like to show student support for solving the Tijuana River sewage crisis. Here's some more pictures. On the left-hand side, on the top and bottom, we have some more pictures from our student-led protests. On the top, we have some club members holding a Stop the Sewage sign. On the bottom, we have some of the audience members rallying. In the middle, on the bottom, we have a picture from one of our most recent club meetings of all the students taking a picture. On the top in the middle, we have a picture from when our club was present at a lobbying trip to Sacramento last year. On the right-hand side on the top, we have a picture from one of the early days of our club. It's when we were first starting to recruit members at Club Rush at our school. And at the bottom on the right, we have a picture of some students in our club at the protest. So here's a video from the Coronado High School Stop the Sewage Club that we filmed at our last meeting.
Sewage! What do we want? Stop the sewage! What do we want? Stop the sewage!
And thank you guys so much for being here. If you want to make a direct monetary deposit, we got the QR code right there. Just an FYI, when we go up to Sacramento in a couple weeks, just $250 sponsors a student for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go meet face-to-face with the state leaders that are in our state. I got the amazing opportunity to do that trip last year, be part of the force that passed 4 state bills last year to protect our waters. And so this year, we're hoping to bring 9 or 10 students with us. And so if you guys can help us support that, that'd be amazing. Thank you all for that.
So thank you for listening about what the Stop the Sewage Club is. And now I would like to invite up Cesar Solis, the Director of Constituent Services of the Office of Congressman Scott Peters.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good evening? Good evening. Hi, everyone. My name is Cesar Solis, and I'm with the Office of Congressman Peters. Fortunately, he cannot be here today. I hope you will take me as a good consolation prize today. I'm going to start off just by reading a statement fresh off the presses. So I apologize that I haven't had a chance to look at it completely, but it's a statement from the Congressman. It reads as such: "Thank you for relentlessly coming together to keep this environmental and public health catastrophe top of mind. I wish I could be there with you in person, but am away on congressional travel regarding renewable energy and U.S. energy security. So I thank you for letting my staff provide an update on our work to tackle this problem. I know how frustrating it is to have our beaches closed, our waters contaminated, and solutions delayed, but we are making progress. It's painfully slow, but the work is underway. Thanks to the nonstop advocacy from San Diego's congressional delegation with the support of Coronado, San Diego, and Imperial Beach officials, we've secured $653 million to modernize the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant. The plant will capture the wastewater flowing from Mexico, treat it to U.S. Clean Waters Act standards, and discharge 4 miles deep into the ocean. This is not the only solution underway, but it will play a major role in solving the problem. Also, earlier this year, after years of back and forth, the Navy, for the first time, acknowledged negative logistical impacts on training operations because of transboundary sewage. We heard about Navy SEALs getting sick from training in these waters, but no official word came from the Navy. That changed after the San Diego delegation sent a letter requesting specific information on the health impacts. And yesterday, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin and other officials from the Trump administration met with Navy SEALs command staff to hear about the water contamination and how it hurts training operations directly from those who plan and direct those operations. There are still dozens of projects that must be completed, most of them south of the border, and we must continue to lean on our Mexican partners to ensure they are accountable to their end of the bargain. During yesterday's visit from EPA Administrator Zeldin, he did not at any point state that the administration has any intention of clawing back funds that are already approved for the International Wastewater Treatment Plant. What he did state, however, was that the administration was not inclined to support one penny more from the federal government until Mexico designates the funds needed to complete the projects that they agreed to in the treaty with them, known as their Minute 328 obligations. He also stated that EPA officials and others would be working to stress test the projects underway on both sides of the border, including the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant, to ensure all of them were being built as quickly as possible. Already they are examining construction timelines to see what can be done to fix the problem and fix it faster. Your voices matter in this fight. Your persistence, your advocacy, and your engagement are the reason why we've been able to make this progress, and the reason we will get this done. I will keep pushing in Washington to ensure this crisis is treated as the emergency it is. Thank you for everything you do to protect our community and our coastline. Stay engaged, keep speaking out, we are in this together. That is from Congressman Peters. He is way off topic. And just briefly, I will just share a couple of slides. I know that IBWC is here as well, so they are going to really delve into it, I bet. Well, I just wanted to sort of show what the advocacy sort of looks like from, we hear about all these letters being sent out all the time from Congress and from other levels of government. And this was, sort of the power of speaking out. This is not just a letter that we send internally with our contacts to any federal agency. We post this on the website and the constituents can follow up on it. It is helpful if we send a letter to a federal agency and then a constituent hears about it and then they ask the federal agency, I saw my member of Congress submitted this letter. When can they expect a response? That is helpful to us because they give us timelines, as you might imagine, and then we follow up and keep following up. And finally, they did respond to us with specifics about the impacts that were happening. For so long, it took them a little bit of convincing to get there, but they got there, and that we think got us to the finish line in terms of making this a serious issue to the federal government. And just generally, as I mentioned yesterday, the administrator mentioned that not one more penny of federal funds will be obligated towards this problem until Mexico completes their financial obligations. We had good progress with, thank you IBWC for this fantastic dashboard. You can see at the very bottom left of the page, there's a green dot. That is the San Antonio de los Buenos plant that was completed. It is operational, it's up and running. And that one, we were happy to hear, I don't even know when it was, maybe a year or two ago, that they obligated all the financials needed for that project to get that going. We want to see more of that now. With all those other projects, you see those other red dots, those yellow dots, those are all the other projects that must be committed to by Mexico to sort of get more U.S. buy-in. And I put this up here just because this is available to the public. If you want to track it, you can go online, you can go to the IBWC's website and track it along with it. If you're seeing that something's not looking right or something's falling behind, that's how you will let us know, because unfortunately I'm not on this website as much as Emily is. So you can let us know if things are falling behind, and that's how we are going to continue to keep Mexico accountable. And I think that is it for me. I encourage you to go to our website, scottpeters.house.gov. You can just search Tijuana River, and that will bring up all of the Congressman's actions on this matter. We have a very long list of accomplishments and actions since 2017 when this really came to sort of a breaking point. More information can be found on the Energy and Environment webpage. You can also give us a call, leave us a voicemail, or you can email me at the bottom directly for more information. If you want to know more about what the Congressman is doing. I've now been with the Congressman since 2018, so I've been working on this thing since then, and I'm happy to talk about the history, all the ins and outs. As you might imagine, as many of you are already familiar, it is a binational issue, which it just brings its own set of challenges, its own sets of challenges. So I'm happy to talk about that, and I thank Laura and the student club here for inviting the Congressman, and I look forward to staying engaged and hearing more from this forum. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Solis, for that presentation. And now I would like to invite up Emily Allen, the Area Operations Manager from the United States International Boundary and Water Commission.
I don't like to stand behind it, especially I'm short.
Do you have the pointer too?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a pointer. There you go. Technology.
Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, okay. Is it better?
No.
It has to be as close as
I don't think
oh,
so.
okay. This is better? All right.
It's not.
Let's see how we sound.
Can you hear me if I just talk without the mic?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just try to.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm Emily Allen, I'm with the International Boundary and Water Commission, and I'll talk about who we are, what we do, and how we are making the situation better for the entire community, with Coronado, Imperial Beach, and San Ysidro. And I think you guys are the mostly impacted communities. Next slide, please. Okay, next one. Okay, International Boundary Water Commission, it's a binational, earlier we talking about binational, it's two nations, Mexico and US. So most time you guys hear us calling ourselves US IBWC, we're the United States section of IBWC, and there's a Mexico section of it. We work together to apply to boundary and water treaties and between the two countries, and then iron out all the differences. Right now, water is a huge issue for us. Next slide, please. This is a little history of it, how we came about. Back in the 1800s, it was only the boundary, looking at the boundary borders between the two countries. And if you think about your neighbor, right, your property lines, which one's your side, which one's their side. So that's what we initially kind of created. 1944 treaty, that's where the beginning of the sewage, the water issue. Not just the water, but also sewage and water issue. And also 1970, that resolved a lot of differences between the two countries. Next slide, please. This is just a little quick history and who we are. And earlier you heard about minutes. What is a minute? Treaties are signed by the president, and then the minutes are signed by the two commissioners. So both countries have the commissioner that basically minutes are recorded agreements between the two countries, and the funding are allocated to these. I'm gonna focus on the three ones that apply to us. Minutes 283 back in the 1990, that's where we established building an international treatment down at the border. That's where I work at. And the minute 320 and minute 328, earlier you heard of minute 328. Those are all the projects in Mexico focusing on the infrastructure improvement in Mexico that can stop the transboundary flow and all the sewage issue. Minute 320 is, and focusing on a lot of other issues. I'll talk about some of the challenges, mainly talking about sediment, trash coming across the border, the Mexico trash coming to us. Next one, please. So this is responsibility, what we do. We're kind of looking at flood control and sanitation, water delivery. You heard a lot about Colorado River, water supply, dams, electrical power plants, and international boundaries. Those are the monuments along the border. We have 283 monuments from the beginning to the end between the two countries. marking our territories.
Sorry.
Just real quick. That's okay. Flood control. See, these are the things we call levees. And then this is a floodplain. This is along the border. This is Tijuana River coming across. And what the levees and floodplain to do is to keep the water when it rains, when a storm comes across. That's what prevents the flooding into the surrounding communities. So that's very, very important for the community over there. That's where you can managing all of the flood. And then here's our South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant, and I'll talk more about that. Yes.
Could you just show on that prior map where the border is?
Oh, yes. So the border is literally along this line here.
So
All the way-
everything north of that is the US.
That's US,
Thank
yes.
you.
And just a reminder, we're going to be keeping questions to the end. In the future, if you have a question, you can raise your hand, and then one of our students can come give you guys a card. Thank you so much.
This is when we talk about a watershed. You know, a lot of people here, a lot of people kind of wondering, why is the water going north, right? You know, shouldn't the water go south? No, it's a watershed. It's the terrain in this area. This is the lowest point. So all the water in this watershed, this green area, as you can see, majority of the area is in Mexico. So all of that flow, whether it's a storm, sewage, they're all coming towards our end. Next, please. So this is earlier we kind of talk about minutes 283. It's a coincidence. 283 and 328. 283, that's went back in 1990. There's an agreement between U.S. and Mexico to share the cost of the construction and operational maintenance of the sewer treatment plant at the border. And the sewer treatment plant, if you look at the treatment plant, what we treat, how we treat it, it is a secondary treatment. So what that means is that you have a primary stage is a purely chemical process. You inject chemical into the sewer system and to kill the bacteria. And then you have a secondary treatment, is a biological process where you have bugs eating up all of the more bacteria. So that's the secondary treatment. So if you look at the city of San Diego in Point Loma, you have the treatment plant, that is advanced primary treatment. So you can tell, as you can see, the level of treatment we have because of the quality of water we are getting. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. There's also another portion of it is that ocean disposal outfall. So from the plant itself, it runs about 3 to 4 miles to the coast, and then another 3.5 miles offshore, 200 feet under the ocean floor, and sends out. So the treated sewage, we call it effluent, it goes out to the ocean. Next slide, please. So this is kind of show you overall flow of what we're treating, how we're treating, and then some of the infrastructure in Mexico. So this is the border, and earlier you saw the Tijuana River, that's when it enters to the U.S. Here's our sewer treatment plant in the U.S. side, and then you have the San Antonio de los Buenos. My Spanish is horrible. So we call it SAB. That's a Mexico sewer treatment plant. What our treatment plant does is, as you can see, this thing called international collector. A lot of message you saw recently talking about repair of an international collector. What that is, they call it collector. It is basically the main sewer system in Mexico. So what our treatment plant does is purely treating the Mexico sewage in their sewer system to remove that from the river, from the ocean, so we can treat that. And also, as you can see, over the last few years, we have a more and more transboundary flow. I'll talk more about what transboundary flow is. So pretty much what that is, anything across the border is considered transboundary flow. So what happens is we have more and more flat, the flow coming across, and what this PV-SELA, PV is the pump station in Spanish, the pump plant. What that is to draw out the flow from the river and send it over to down south. So So what that south is, past SAB treatment plant goes straight out to the ocean. A lot of you heard, the sewage or river flow going down south, 6 miles south of the border and into the ocean. So that's what that is. So this pump station pulls the river flow, send it down south into the ocean, and then also part of that is sent to our plant to treat. A lot of people asking, are we treating the river flow? The intent is for a treatment plant, because sewage treatment plant is intended to treat sewage. What happens is when you have a lot of storm flow, because in the river you have a lot of sewage, but you also have a lot of just regular water, and that will kill the bugs in our secondary treatment facility. This is why we avoid treating the river flow. And then, so this is the pump station 1. This is what Mexico side, their pump station takes that flow, send it down to SAB for treatment. And then you see this thing called canyons. There are, along the border, we have a total of 6 canyon collectors. 5 of those collect those flow and send it into our pump station. A lot of you heard recently have issues at Goats Canyon, Smuggler's Gulch Canyon, and you have also Silver, Del Sol, and Stewart Stream. So there are 5 of those. They collect it, they send it over to our plant to be treated. Next. Here's some challenges that we've been dealing with. As you can see, we have a 25 million gallon sewer treatment plant, but as the population growth in Mexico, in Tijuana, it goes way faster than we can treat. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And then one of the intent is increase our treatment plant to capture all of those sewage in the Tijuana sewer system. The other one is the amount of transboundary flow that we're getting, whether it's in the river or in the canyon collectors. So we see more and more of that. So river, as you can see, that's all of the flow in the river, where it come from. And then also the canyon collector, that's where when the sewer system or any area in Mexico, they have a breakage in their sewer system, that comes through the canyon collector. So we catch it right there and send it to our plant. And the biggest issue that we have is normal sewer treatment plant don't deal with is the sediment trash. Normal sewage, our US sewage treatment plant, all you treat is what's in the sewer system. It's a closed pipe system. It goes to the sewer treatment plant, that's all you treat. What we're treating is the amount of sediment coming across, as you can see. This is, I think I've shared before and after picture, before the rain, after. This is during the rain. During the rain, after the rain, this is the amount of sediment and trash you would capture. And guess what? These are hitting our sewer treatment plant and knocks them out. Next slide, please. This is what we talk about transboundary flow. As you can see, transboundary flow during the dry season, this when it's not raining. Obviously, river is meant for rain, right? To capture the rain flows. Assume that there's no sewage. But over the dry weather period, that should be 0. We should not see any numbers here. As you can see, over the last few years, this is humongous amount of flow in the river that we're supposed to have nothing. So that's where the issue is. We talk about transboundary flow. And that's what's causing the beach closures and the smells, right? All of that sewer during the hot weather and during these months. And you have a high hydrogen sulfide. So those are kind of somewhat related. And this is kind of show you from 2019 all the way to 2024. 2025, I think it was trying to be nice to me. I just started a job. We didn't get a lot of rain this year. This is absolutely nothing compared to the previous years. This is a total 1 million gallons of flow, and we're not even close. So because we didn't get a lot of rain this year. And this is where it starts. We should see 0, but we're still seeing flow in the river when PV Sealer is online, and then all of the treatment plants are taking out max capacity. So we're still seeing flow in the river. So that's where the issue that we need to solve. Next one, please. These are what we call the 4 key fronts these are the initiatives that we, as IBWC have, initiated. This is constantly we're working on. The first thing is the repair and compliance. Obviously, our plant has to be fully in compliance to properly treat the sewage before they leave the plant. And we had invested over $30 million since 2021. And then the other thing is that we just started yesterday is the Tijuana River Valley Monitoring Program. And then this is a portion of what we're doing, talking about not having enough capacity to treat the sewer in Tijuana. We're expanding the plant from 25 million gallons per day to 50. So that double the capacity and with a peak of 75. And also, a lot of people think about it takes 5 years. Are we going to wait for another 5 years to see any improvement? The answer is no. We're going to do a incrementally improvement over the next 5 years, incrementally increase the capacity, increase the way we treat, and remove the transboundary flow, little by little. And here's the Minute 328 projects we kind of talked about earlier. And SAB plant is completed. So we're finishing, Mexico is finishing up their stabilization. So when the treatment plant has to come up to plant and meeting their permit, Mexico's permit compliance. So that is when they are reaching the final stage of doing the treatment, but they've been taking all of the flow over the last few months. Next month, they're officially turning over from their Mexican Army. They're the one that doing the construction, turning over to the local to maintain the plant. And then you kind of saw about the international collector project that's still going on. And tomorrow we're going to meet with Mexico section to look at how we're going to prevent transboundary flow during the stages. So we meet with Mexico constantly to make sure every step of the way in the project, they don't cause additional spillage, additional flow into the river. And the last portion is transboundary flow. How do we manage that? You know, we have accelerated commissioner level meetings. They meet monthly basis. And then also talking about some of the satellite imagery review of where the spills could potentially be at. We're kind of watching over them. And then also looking at a lot of binational river inspections. So we actually goes out once a month during the dry season to see what kind of flow is in the river. And I think that's my last slide. And the last slide that with a code. The code is for you to get announcements if you want it. The announcement from IBWC.
Thank you so much. I would now like to invite Dr. Paula Granados.
Because I had a student help me with this PowerPoint, and I feel like there's a lot of fancy things in it that I might need to be in charge of over here. So, thank you. That was great. I learned a lot, Emily. I appreciate that. I appreciate the transparency of the IBWC telling us about what's going on. And from an academic perspective, that makes a lot of sense to me because that's what we've been seeing on the ground. And so, being in the School of Public Health, I want to follow this with what are some of the impacts of these transboundary flows on our health and on our environment. There's a lot of things I could talk about, but I'm going to stick to the research that we're doing and how that translates into like community health perspective. As soon as I figure out how to do this, I'm going to do that. All right. So let's start off with the problem. And so I think you all are familiar with this, the sewage, and we talk a lot about beach closures. You know, that's part of the story. I know that heavily impacts you all here in Coronado. I have to say I'm a big fan of Coronado Dog Beach. I go to all the time. And, you know, since I've started working on these issues, I will admittedly say I don't come as often, because it's concerning for me, knowing what I know, now to take my kid and my dog and my husband there, and if my husband being immunocompromised, I think a lot about this as well. And so that there's more to this story than just beach closures. I think that not being able to get into our beautiful waters and surf is really important, but it also has an impact on our health, whether you get in the water or not. That's probably I think. So I think I put out a report back in November of 2023 now? I think when we did a white paper that was commissioned by the Previs Foundation because of Scott Peters asking this to be funded to look at some of the data that's been out there for a long time. UCSD, SDSU, and several other institutions have been doing research on this for what seems like forever. As Emily mentioned, in the 90s this was a problem. We found that it went back over 100 years. And so some of the things that we were able to pull up from some of the more recent research was what are some of the contaminants that we're finding. We're looking at biological, we're looking at chemical, and these are some of the things that we have found in the water samples that have been taken. This study that I'm quoting from here was in 2019, so it's been 6 years, and I have to say that our newest data that's coming out hopefully soon, it hasn't changed. 392 chemicals were identified. You can see some of the major categories that they're from. Several of these, 200 to be more or less exact on this, appear on a regulatory list of some kind. 175 of them are on the US EPA Toxic Substance Control Act. That means they're bad actors. This is stuff that should not be in our water. So when we talk about sewage, we think about pathogens, right? We think about bacteria. Well, in this water, there's stuff other than just sewage, and that's what we want to be very clear about. A substantial number of these contaminants are what we call emerging concern. So they may not even be labeled yet as to how toxic they are. And so that's something that as academics we're looking into and trying to get to the bottom of it. So biological contaminants, like I said, it is sewage, so we are finding what we would expect to find in sewage. A lot of what we talk about is antibiotic resistant genes. And basically in academia, that's something we're super interested in because as we know, there's a lot of antibiotic resistance that we talk about nowadays. I'm not surprised to find this because this is what you would find in sewage. However, what I often talk about, it's not necessarily what is in the sewage, but it's in the vast amounts of the sewage that is actually coming out. And that's the important piece, is that if you have a small sewage leak, you expect to find these things, but when you find, millions or billions of gallons of this raw sewage untreated, it's the quantity, the sheer quantity of some of the bacteria and pathogens that you'll find. So you've probably heard of salmonella, strep, tuberculosis, listeria, all of this is in this water. Now, how viable is that to breathe it? We're working on that question right now with my partners at UCSD. We're looking at that water to air transfer. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But definitely, as we heard from the Navy SEALs, we've heard from surfers, we've heard from people living on our coastline, people do get sick when they get in the water. The point we're trying to make here is, does it take just water contact to make you sick? And I'm going to say that the answer is no. This also came out in our report talking about how does it impact our wildlife and our environment. And as you know, probably have seen even in recent pictures, there's a lot of stranded dolphins. We've been talking about the tides. People have asked me, is the red tides or the algal blooms that are happening right now, is that a result of the sewage? And I'm going to say no on that because it's happening up and down the coastline. However, it doesn't help that we do have a large amount of sewage that is coming out, and we are finding that some of our wildlife is dying as a result of coming into contact with this sewage. And so I think that this is also very concerning for our environmental groups, along with knowing that these are mammals that are dying because they're being exposed to this. So, as I just mentioned, now we're going to talk about what's in the air. And I'm going to mention a couple of different things here. I did just find out we have our colleagues from UCSD are here. I think we have Dr. Beatriz here, who can also help answer some questions at the end. Thank you for for being here. She's from UCSD, working with Dr. Kim Prather. We found ourselves working side by side on this back whenever a lot of this stuff started really coming out in the news last year. This is some of the work that UCSD is doing. SDSU is also doing some similar work, but we have different goals, and so we do different scientific experiments. But this was a study that came out of UCSD researchers showing that up to 76% of the bacteria that they were seeing in Imperial Beach air was directly linked to the sewage in the Tijuana River. And with that study, that prompted us to start to think, how much of that can people breathe in and actually get sick from it? We're still answering some of those questions right now, and that's what we're kind of in the thick of doing our research with right now. So you heard a little bit about hydrogen sulfide, right? I heard you say we needed to call a plumber, right? That's what happened. Well, these hydrogen sulfide levels are exceeding state thresholds. We found out through Dr. Kim Prather's work that what we were looking at the coast, we're wondering what was going on a little bit further inland, and she was really the one that highlighted the fact that there's these turbulent areas within the river itself that are creating these gas basically releases, hydrogen sulfide being one of them. We're looking at the other thousands of gases that are in this mixture, but hydrogen sulfide is the one that's easiest to monitor and that we can all smell. And you'll see that this is what a lot of people have been talking about. We're kind of getting to the bottom of it, understanding now that due to temperature inversions and the fact that there's this retainment of the water for a long period of time, as that hydrogen sulfide gas builds up, it hits some of these aerosolization zones, or we're calling them hot spots, and that's where the gases are released and they just spread out. You can smell it all the way up to Coronado on a good day, but if you can imagine also how the people living right next to the river are feeling. I get calls from them on a regular basis that they wake up, they can't breathe at night. One woman in particular, I saw her the other day, she said she uses a CPAP machine to sleep at night. The gases get into her CPAP machine, wake her up choking. And this is pretty frequent for people living within that 2-mile radius right around some of these areas. So this is something that's really impacting our entire region. And so I think it's important to talk about that. And talking about exceedances, so does anybody know what an exceedance is for hydrogen sulfide in a community or in general? Anyone guess? I see a hand.
Isn't the threshold 30 or something?
Yeah, it's 30.
I've seen it quite regularly.
Exactly.
Based on the emails I get.
Exactly. So
Rarely
30 parts per billion is what we call a nuisance threshold. And the reason why it's called a nuisance threshold is because there really shouldn't be any hydrogen sulfide in a community. You find hydrogen sulfide in oil and gas industry, you find them in large animal feeding operations like chicken farms and pig farms, but you shouldn't find them in a community. You find them at wastewater treatment plants too, by the way. So these are things that you shouldn't really be seeing in a community. So the state has, just for community level background, number of 30 parts per billion. And as you can see here, you're up to around 300 or 400 parts per billion here. This was April 21st of this data that was, now you have to show me how to point. The big one? Okay. So this was just last week, or April 21st, actually, not too long ago, a few days ago. So you can see it's exceeding regularly. This is also happening in the evening. These monitors that you can see here, all 3 of them actually were exceeded. This is at the Imperial Beach Civic Center, Nestor, which is really close to that hot spot that I mentioned, and also in San Isidro. So if it's exceeding there, that's more opportunities for it to reach other communities as well. So I guess just a little bit more about that 30 parts per billion. That's about the level where you start thinking I should call a plumber. So that's where everybody can smell it. There's a lot of us lucky super smellers out there, like myself, that can smell it at much lower levels, like closer to like 5 parts per billion. And unfortunately, it's a lot of those people that probably get really sick, nauseous, headaches, vomiting, all of those things will happen at that 30 parts per billion level or lower. Anything higher above that is where we start to see people getting sick, especially in special populations, people that are immunocompromised or have other health issues. All right, so hopefully this plays. there is supposed to be music to it, but I don't think it's working. So this is some of the work that we've been doing with our colleagues at UCSD. This is the river at high flow. That foam is not supposed to be there. That's full of chemicals and fats from sewage. These are some of the samples that we had to go out and take with drones because it was too hard and too smelly to get into some of these places during that really high heat event that we had. We suit up, wear respirators, and many of us are still getting sick. It's hard to really think about how risky some of this work is, because if you can imagine being around that much sewage and that much contamination, we train our students to, wear the PPE, but unfortunately, I think all of us that have been working down there have at least gotten sick a few times. So I'm gonna kind of go through this quickly because I know I don't have that much time, but I think a lot of people want to understand a little bit more about some of our chemical analysis that I mentioned earlier. The most recent pieces that we've got out here are some of the work that we started collecting in September 2024. And I'm going to talk about this because this is that time during that special heat wave time period, and also when Mexico diverted the sewage, which for us as scientists was a great real-time experiment because we saw super high flows of 80 million gallons a day drop down to about 5 million gallons a day, and astronomical decreases in the amount of people calling in and saying that they could smell the hydrogen sulfide. And we also saw decreases in the amount of contamination that we were looking at, and increases in other places. So just like Emily was showing us, these are a few of the places where we also take, this is the estuary. This was a private drinking water well that's very close to the river. One of the hot spots that we call Saturn Bridge, and then Hollister Bridge, and those are both located really close to communities, and it's a place where a lot of the sewage and the water gets aerosolized. So just quickly, what is non-targeted analysis in a nutshell? It's basically throwing out a wide net and looking for anything, basically. So non-targeted is akin to like, what do I want to watch tonight? Versus, I know exactly what I want to watch tonight. I like this. One of my students put this together. I think it's a great way to look at it. We're throwing out a wide net. I can't tell you how much, but I can tell you what we are finding and what the abundance of it is. And so right here is what we call a heat map of chemicals we found in several of the samples. Each row is a different water sample, and it's a little bit complicated, but basically what I'm trying to show is that these are samples we took by hand up here. These are samples we took with drones. This is at the river mouth. This is at Scripps Pier, because we need to have a comparison site. This was a drinking water well. These are those two hot spots that we were talking about. And so you can see here that the chemical profiles, this is basically the number of chemicals that we're finding in the water, is a lot different than it is over here. And so why are these considered hot spots? Again, it's because the chemical profiles, the aerosolization, the amount of sewage, all of this is really heavy in these areas right here. This is what a sampling event at high flow looked like that we took. I'm going to show you some of those results. This is low flow. I know you may not see the big difference, but I could definitely smell the difference while we were there. This comes out of usually 3 different pipes right there. And it travels pretty fast coming through there, and then it starts to kind of trickle out. Again, this white foam should not be there. That's not like sea foam or like what you would see in an ocean wave. This is the result of chemical interactions and fats and waste that are coming from the sewage. So before and after flow is reduced, this was something that I found really interesting. This was before Mexico diverted the river, and I think it was in the last slide that I had that there in the middle. The pump is activated in Tijuana, diverting wastewater away from the Tijuana River, reducing the flow significantly. And so looking at this before and after, you can see before it's kind of flowing, right? So you can see the chemicals are kind of spread out. Here's kind of what it looked like after, and I'm just showing you Saturn Boulevard, the hot spot right there. What we found out too is the chemicals were actually concentrating with the lower flow. And so, which makes a lot of sense now after we think about it, because the water's not flowing as fast as it was. But it's now kind of settling in, and you're seeing a more abundance of chemicals because it's not flowing as quickly. So water quality didn't significantly improve, although the water was diverted. and the samples were concentrated more at a low flow. This is a really interesting academic question because we kind of wonder, what does it look like when they reduce the flow? Well, there's still chemicals in the water. This is the newest results that we have. We found so far about 2,500 different chemicals, but these are the ones I wanted to profile. These pesticides are concerning. 2 of them are not supposed to be used in the United States, banned in the US. One of them is banned in California in particular, so there shouldn't be in our water system. And then some of the things that you would expect to find in sewage is there, but we're also finding things like plasticizers and things that come from manufacturing, from like different types of carpet industries, fabric, television industry, things like that. So stay tuned for more on what exactly we're finding. It gets a little nerdy when we start really breaking it down, but I wanted to make sure I got to show you what some of those categories are. Secondly, we've got a health survey, which I'm going to give you guys a link to, and hopefully if you haven't filled it out yet, we would love to have you fill it out. Coronado is in our capture group for who would like to fill out this survey. But we're looking at community concerns and perceptions about your environment. And so what we really want to find out is, how often are you smelling these smells? How often are you coming into contact with the water? And how often are you getting sick? And so this first batch that we sort of put out was a rapid response, just capturing people's health symptoms. And this is what I'm going to show you the results from. We've since launched what we call longitudinal. Basically, that just means like we're going to follow people over a period of a year and ask once a month that you fill out a survey and tell us what you feel, what you smell, what you see. And this is where I'm going to start talking a little bit more about that towards the end. But so far we had about 326 participants. We actually had more than that, but these are the only ones that finished filling out the survey. I have to admit it's a little bit long, so we've shortened the follow-up survey. But just to give you a little bit about the demographics of who took it, you can see we had mostly women. 81% were over the age of 35. 36% identified as Hispanic. And then many of them lived in households with either children or older adults. And this will be important here in a minute, you'll see with these results. I have to say, a lot of people from Imperial Beach had filled this out. A few people from Coronado. We definitely need Coronado's perspective on this as well. So what did we find so far? Here's some of the results. Over 77% of those 372 participants stated having upper respiratory symptoms. These are also associated with higher levels of smell. So the more times you smell smells in your home, the higher percentage chance you had of experiencing these symptoms. So also diarrhea, 22% of those people missed work, so you can also see this has economic impact in our region. Other things that were reported heavily were headaches, difficulty concentrating. A lot of people having trouble sleeping because the smells are mostly coming at night. So what are some of the other health concerns that we want to talk about a little bit more? Is what's important to note is not everybody sought health care. Well, why is that? I don't want to be gross, but any of you experience maybe a bout of diarrhea, you don't necessarily go straight to the doctor. Maybe when you hit day 4 or day 5, if you're feeling dehydrated, then you might go. But most of these are self-limiting diseases that people don't necessarily get to go to the doctor for. And when they do, it's not being reported. So when the county health says we're not seeing an increase in illnesses in people living in the South Bay, it's because most of this is chronic and it's happening to people too frequently, and they're not always reporting it. The county health only records people that go to the emergency room. And so I thought what was important was, among families with older adults or children, 80% reduced their outdoor activities. And I think for us that's significant because, I don't know about you, but the cost of living here is high, and one of the reasons I live here is because we can be outdoors a lot. And so that's a huge significant thing in public health. We want to, tell people to go outside and be healthy. So this is also perceptions about their environment. 96% said the water quality they perceived was poor. 57% were affected by boiled water notices. I know that affected you all as well. Nobody thought the air was good, and 23% experienced daily odors. And this was during that time period, especially whenever we were having a lot of heat. This is a very busy slide, but basically it's just showing you that more associations were found with people that, the higher, like I said, the amount of smell that you smell, the more symptoms that you experience. So there's like a direct correlation that we actually found between the smells and illness. So this is a survey that we have. We have a website we put together. It's tjriver.sdsu.edu. We're going to hopefully help to provide updates on our website about the survey. We'd like to have monthly reports coming back on what people are saying, and hopefully it'll show us trends over time. If the reduction in flow happens, then we hope that the health and the smell symptoms stay low. But if we start seeing it creep up again, this health survey should kind of help us be able to tell when there's problems going on in people's homes and how it's impacting their health. And so this is really important. If you all are able to help fill this out, we greatly appreciate it. So this is our team. We have so many people that we work with. Several of them are here in the room. And we work with a lot of nonprofits. We have an entire team of researchers. It's a very huge group. This isn't even including all of the UCSD faculty and students, which there's what, 50, 60? I don't even know. So I feel like this has been the most, we've moved this needle on this topic in a long time. And I feel like having the universities working with all the nonprofits and this being really multidisciplinary and having the community engaged with this work is really helping us to see how big this problem is. And I think it's bringing attention to it. And I think that you all are doing a fantastic job, because I really believe that the work that you're doing with this group is bringing the media, it's bringing the attention that we need. And hopefully we'll see you guys out there taking samples with us whenever you go to college, right? So just a push for SDSU, we have a really good program there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to invite Robson Winter, who's a field representative of the Office of Assemblywoman Tasha Berner, and Rosanna Javier, who's the district representative from the Office of Senator Stephen Padilla.
Alright, hello everyone. Can you all hear me? Perfect. It's great to see you all again. My name is Robson Winter, and I'm a field representative for Site Member Tasha Berner, who wishes she could be here with us today, but she is currently up in the Capitol in Sacramento, where she works hard to champion environmental causes. And as we all know, the Tijuana River Valley sewage crisis is one of the most pressing environmental issues facing San Diego County today. The Site Member has supported bills aimed at addressing this issue, including Assembly Joint Resolution 12 in 2024, which asks the federal government to fully fund the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's comprehensive infrastructure solution for the Tijuana River. She also co-authored Assembly Bill 1597 in 2023, which would have allowed funds to be made available to the California Environmental Protection Agency for the North American Development Bank in order to provide loans, grants, and direct expenditures on projects addressing water quality issues in the California-Mexico cross-border watersheds. Wow, that makes reading my notes a lot easier, so thank you. Assemblymember Berner approaches legislation through three lenses: sustainability, equality, and opportunity. This crisis is emblematic of the importance of these three pillars. To create sustainability, we know that we need to protect our oceans, estuaries, and our coastal environments. To promote opportunity and equality, we know that equitable access to natural resources like our beaches and healthy living conditions is essential to building thriving communities and empowering our youth to engage with the world around them. Speaking of youth empowerment, we're so inspired by the Coronado High School Stop the Sewage Club and students like Danny and Sean who do all of this work. Danny, we actually recognized at our Environmental Hero Awards last year, so thank you for everything that you all are doing, Sean, and all the students. It truly is inspiring and commendable. There's a lot of power in these youth-led movements. We're grateful for organizations like Stop the Sewage that are passionate about bettering our communities and improving the environment. Assemblymember Berner's overarching goal in the Assembly is to leave a better world for her children and future generations. Our office will continue to support creating a cleaner environment and building a more sustainable future. Please reach out to our office with any questions. My coworker, Novik, is here. We can definitely give you any cards afterwards, so we can continue to have these conversations if there's any follow-up that we can work with you all on. So thank you again to the Coronado High School Stop the Sewage Club, as well as Laura for inviting us to be here today. I'd now like to welcome my wonderful colleague, Rosanna Javier from State Senator Steve Padilla's office, to speak further on the matter.
Allison, for that introduction. So again, my name is Rosanna Javier. I'm a district representative for the Office of State Senator Steve Padilla. Before I get started talking about one of the senator's bills, thank you to Stop the Sewage Club at Coronado High School for inviting our office here today. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about SB 10. Oh, you kind of can't really see it. But it's SB 10 2026 by Steve Padilla. The Otay Mesa East Toll Facility Act, toll revenues. This is a bill that aims to address one of the main problems that we see in how this pollution has gotten worse. Right. So one bill in the background, we got a lot of awesome background, so thank you to everyone who explained all your research and everything at the IBWC. Really appreciate that background. As you all know, large economic growth on the U.S.-Mexico border. And Sandag has now started developing the new Otay Mesa East Port of Entry in Otay Mesa. So there are a couple wastewater treatment plants, one on the U.S. side, overseen by the IBWC, and there's a lot of record high flows and a lot of toxic sewage that we've discussed. All right, so to get into a little more about the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, it's a new land port of entry projected to be completed by late 2027 along State Route 11. It's a joint venture between Sandag, Caltrans, and state and federal partners, so U.S. and Mexico. And this new port of entry will hopefully alleviate a lot of the stress that we see on the current port of entry in San Ysidro, but will also lead to a lot of increased economic activity, thus further stressing an environmentally overburdened community in the South Bay. Oh, and this is that map is kind of the developments. It's opening, one part of the corridor is opening pretty soon, but it'll overall be completed in a couple years. So it gets a little nitty gritty. There's a lot. It gets very technical in terms of the toll revenue. So this is an agreement between the federal government and Sandag on how the toll revenue can be used. Since it's a federal port of entry and Sandag was named the operator for this state route. So this is a pretty broad list, but in this agreement, it's very clear on what they can and can't use in these tolls. So for bond repayments, operations, toll collection, administration, improvement, costs, basically anything that has to do with transportation, anything that has to do with maintaining the route, the corridor itself. Right. So what is SB 10? This is the senator at his press conference that he did a few weeks ago on his Tijuana River legislative package. He has a couple bills, but for today we'll focus on SB 10. It would expressly authorize Sandag to use the funds from this new port of entry for water treatment, environmental mitigation, and restoration of the Tijuana River Valley. To be specific, it's for federal water treatment and environmental mitigation. It must have a federal obligation. So yeah, they could be allocated for improvement of current wastewater infrastructure, like the South Bay treatment plant, as well as any additional federal projects to address this crisis that would ultimately benefit the South San Diego County areas. So why is this important? So there, as you all may know, there is currently no ongoing long-term consistent funding of any federal projects pertaining to wastewater treatment and the Tijuana River itself. And because of that, a lot of it has come to disrepair. A lot of problems have been caused. We heard a little bit about the sediment flowing through, creating more issues, more issues when treating the wastewater. So SB 10 aims to address one of the roots of this problem that we're seeing with the wastewater treatment by providing an ongoing, dedicated funding source for operating and maintenance. The senator has been this bill, he's pushing kind of the legal threshold, because as we saw in this past one, these are really the only things that he can use. So by creating this correlation between higher transit, higher traffic coming across the border, he's making that connection that this pollution will continue to exacerbate an already burdened community. continues, as we all know, to poison our communities, and this is just one way, that one little tool in the toolbox that the senator wants for us all to be able to use for the future. Yes, these toll revenues will not be available until 2027 when it opens, but if we see these short-term solutions, the EPA administrator coming and pledging to help with this pollution, we know in the future that we won't have this issue of not having ongoing operating and maintenance funds. So yeah, that's kind of the main, that's kind of the intent of the bill, right? So yeah, sorry, just want to make sure I have everything. All right, so FAQs and next steps. So why does this specifically name federal infrastructure projects like the wastewater treatment plant in the South Bay? So they must go towards a federal obligation because this is federal dollars. A lot of the questions that I've been hearing are, why is this money not staying local? And it's not staying local because it's not local funding. These are federal monies, this is state money that we are seeing. So in order for SANDAG to come to that agreement, so like on this slide, if SB 10 passes and SANDAG agrees, they have to renegotiate that agreement that I explained earlier on what they can and can't use the toll revenues for, right? So this, by naming a federal obligation, it provides more of an incentive for the federal government or for SANDAG to come to that agreement with minimal barriers in order to get this project on the ground running without any additional delays. And then for where it's SB 10 in the legislative process, that is a little outdated. It was heard in Senate Appropriations this past Monday. It was held in suspense. So basically, the Appropriations Committee is going to continue looking into the appropriations, the fiscal impact that this bill will have on the state, and then we'll come to another hearing where they will decide whether to release it and it goes to the Senate floor, or if another committee, or if it'll die in that committee. And then how can you support? Oh, it's gonna cut off a little bit. You can either write a letter of support if you're from an organization that you feel you want to support SB 10. Feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to point you in the right direction to write a letter of support to share your voice and why this is important for you, your community. And even if you are a resident, you can also submit one like that. And then it's cut off, but you can also call your state senator, assembly member, and urge them to support SB 10. If you don't hear about it, or I can't remember the saying, but if you don't hear about it, if you don't see it, then, or out of sight, out of mind, right? So yeah, see, I got there. So out of sight, out of mind. If your representative doesn't know about SB 10, doesn't know about this pollution crisis, then they won't be informed as much. They won't know that this is very important for you as their constituent. So it's important to continue to share your thoughts, opinions, and share your support. And okay, that's all I have. I hope I made time. Okay, but that's my email. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And if you don't remember my email, I'm also based out of the San Diego County District Office, so feel free to call the office, and then we'll point you in the right direction. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, so at this time, this is going to wrap up kind of the presentations that we have. We'd love to invite you all to kind of enjoy. We have some drinks back there, some cookies. We'd like you all to come make connections with the people that you just heard speak. If you have dying questions that you've been holding on to so responsibly for the past hour, thank you. And now's a great time to come up and ask them. Make a connection with the people that represent you and the people that are doing such important research. I'd like to thank City Councilwoman Carrie Downey for being with us. Thank you. And I'd also like to give a huge shout out to Cole over there. She's been working our audio visual. a huge round of applause to all the high school members. I think we have a couple Emerald Keepers people that I saw pop in. Thank you guys for coming out. And in the corner there, we have some more of our Stop the Sewage High School Club members. Thank you guys for being here. One more round. All right, the event was live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. If you want to check that out, archived. If you want to like sit down for another hour and a half and listen to it over again, yeah, that's your prerogative. So yeah, come join in some.
Look at the presentation was on the Stop the Sewage website too.
Yes, Laura would like you to know that the presentation is on the Stop the Sewage website as well. It will be in the future. That way you can look at specifically what's put there. If the font was too small or if it was in kind of a different color, you can go back, look, take notes. Yeah, get more in depth. I think that's all of the notes I had. Danny, do you have anything to share? Then with that, thank you guys so much for coming out. So feel free to mingle, grab some cookies, grab some bevs, ask some questions, enjoy. Thank you guys.